Band of Brothers tells the story of the men of the 101st Airborne Division, specifically Easy Company, during World War II. Stephen E Ambrose draws in everyone from World War II buffs and curious historians to average Joes like me by using a combination of interviews and other documents to effectively convey the significance of Easy Company's successes during the war. In writing the book, Ambrose doesn't seek to prove an academic point or offer new insight. He simply strives to convey the truth of what it took to serve in, and be part of, one of the most intense military units ever brought together during one of the largest conflicts in world history. By doing so, he effectively communicates the toughness and even the heroism, though they themselves avoid the word, of the members of Easy Company. A book like Band of Brothers really appeals to people interested in World War II, the military, or the history of military training and organization. However, we can tell that Ambrose writes for a multitude of people due to the book's steady pacing and exciting detail. However, its factual focus lends it some use as a historical record as well. When the book opens, Easy Company, a new group of elite paratroopers, begin to congregate and drill, eliminating the weak of heart in a ludicrous training regimen even by Army standards. The training pushes many of the men past their limits and inspires a deep camaraderie common amongst all branches of the military. Unlike in most branches of the military, however, the men of Easy Company are forced to deal with Captain Sobel. Captain Herbert Sobel should never have been the captain of a company. He was indecisive, unorganized, and lacked the courage required for combat. As training wore on and these facts became more apparent, the men grew to despise him, some even discussing shooting him when they dropped into the field. Though Sobel created frequent problems, even inspiring the discussions of mutiny, the way he united the troops against a common foe created a truly cohesive group of young men in absolute peak physical condition. By describing the rigorous training of Easy Company men and their intense hatred for their CO, or commanding officer, Ambrose highlights the unique nature of their origins and sets the stage for their future trials. In the book, Ambrose seeks to drive home the level of bravery and determination found in the U.S. Army, and by outlining the trials and tribulations of Easy Company's beginnings, he shows readers the environment required to foster such men and such bravery. Ambrose also seeks to weave a cohesive narrative, and by investigating the brothers' early days, creates a connection to certain key soldiers that carries over into their actual trials in the field. This section of the book, alongside a few of the more interesting combat scenarios, captured my attention the most, because in this section specifically, the members of the company are coming into the picture and beginning to find their role in the group. It also doesn't hurt that none of the interesting characters died during the whole section. As the book progressed, and more of the soldiers I had been introduced to earlier died, I got surprisingly sad. However, the second section of the book doesn't just evoke sadness. The majority of the book focuses on Easy Company's actions in the line of duty. Day to day, the men faced everything from enemy soldiers to friendly civilians, from frozen landscapes to wet and muddy islands. The two most recognizable battlefields in which these soldiers fought, Utah Beach during D-Day and Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge, surprisingly do not provide the backdrop for many of the heroic achievements. Instead, many of the most memorable tales of military achievement come in lesser-known locales like Caratan, a small town outside of Normandy. The depiction of the company's actual feats of physical and mental fortitude emphasize more than anything else the ideas of strength and skill against intense resistance that Ambrose strives so hard to convey. Riveting accounts of captured towns, withheld outposts, midnight raids, and many more interesting activities create a sense of awe in the men's abilities, while descriptions of the freezing weather and the lack of food breed sympathy. After finishing the book, I solidly admired the men, but remained dumbstruck at the fact that they got through all this. I mean, some of the stuff they did was ridiculous. At one point during the Battle of the Bulge, they were stuck in frozen holes for weeks with almost no food and barely any medical supplies or ammunition. It was terrible. And I mean, the fact that I have this much respect and this much admiration for these men really speaks to how well Ambrose conveys these men's bravery, these men's heroic nature, and their strength. Like I said, he has no official thesis, but if he did, it would definitely be about proving how brave and how great these men were. And I believe him after reading this book. He does a fantastic job. These guys were crazy, they did insane things, sometimes horrible things, sometimes fantastic things. But overall, they were pretty impressive men, and Ambrose does a very, very good job of getting that across. Let's talk about Ambrose's style for a little while. Ambrose writes his work in an easy-to-understand chronological and factual record, mixing big-picture facts with personal anecdotes and accounts to paint a vivid, mostly comprehensible narrative. I say mostly because Ambrose uses a significant amount of military jargon in his composition, some of which will go over a reader's head. Ambrose obviously expects his readers to know a certain amount about the military, and I definitely didn't. Though it made for a few confusing sections, usually when Ambrose discussed rank or accolades, it did not seriously take away from my enjoyment of the book. You may have heard of Band of Brothers in a different light than the one discussed here. A few years ago, HBO produced a mini-series based on the book. The series breaks up each stage in the men's journey in an episode and tells the story in the style of a Hollywood movie. Now, I could rant about the pros and cons of portraying the story that way for an entire documentary, so instead we'll focus on one character in particular, and that character is Captain Herbert Sobel. Now, to refresh your memory, Sobel was the hated captain of Easy Company during their training and staging. He was harsh, unforgiving, and also not really the best commanding officer. In the opening moments of the HBO series, Sobel was painted as a very confident man. He's really got a lot of control. He does all the workouts with the men. He runs with them up the mountain Currahee, this massive mountain the men have to jog up and down for training. And he encourages them through being really, really mean. However, the book paints him in a very different light. The book explicitly says that he did not complete these brutal runs up Currahee. In fact, that he would go up with the men, but he wouldn't come all the way down. He would get in a buggy or he would stop running and let the men finish. He wouldn't. I mean, to illustrate how bad Sobel's fitness was, to illustrate how little of the workouts he actually participated in with his men, before going into, the final combat staging, before going overseas, the men had to pass a physical training test where they had to do 20 push-ups as part of this test in front of a drill sergeant. All the men at Easy Company, of course, passed because they were abused and they were used to this kind of stuff. Sobel got to 18 and could barely keep going. All the men really, really, really thought he wasn't going to make it, and they were really hopeful he wasn't going to make it because remember, they all hated him. Unfortunately, he did and was brought over to Britain. So at first, it kind of upset me because it was not at all how I had Sobel pictured in my head. However, the series does correct itself by adequately displaying his confusion and lack of practical battlefield knowledge through two scenes in particular in that same episode, believe it or not. First, there's a scene in which Sobel makes a serious mistake in a field maneuver. A field maneuver is a game is to train the troops and officers. Here's the clip.
We're in the wrong position. We're in the wrong position.
We're textbook position for ambush, sir. I think we should sit tight and let the enemy team come into our killing zone.
They're right out there somewhere. Let's just get them.
Sir, we have perfect cover here.
Lieutenant, deploy your troops.
Second platoon. Move out. What? Tactical column.
Captain, you've just been killed, along with 95% of your company. Your outfit?
Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 506.
Leave 3 wounded men on the ground and report back to the assembly area.
See? I mean, how would you feel if you were intimidating an intense officer? All of a sudden started acting like this. I don't blame the men of Easy Company for wanting to follow somebody else. In the second scene depicting Sobel's lack of confidence, he completely gets his platoon lost on a field maneuver, ending up next to a farmer's barbed wire fence. A barbed wire fence, all military personnel are under instruction not to cut while on field maneuvers. His men's lack of confidence in him makes itself very evident in their reaction to his confusion. Watch.
There should be no fence here.
We could go over it, sir.
Really? That's not the point.
Connie, Sobel's lost again, right? Yeah, he's lost. Hey, run! Can you do Major Wharton?
It's a wild bear crap in the woods, son.
That's great. Maybe the good Major can goose this smuck. Get us moving? No, man. Oh, yeah, yes. Buzz, you got it. You got it. Come on. All right, just this once.
356833. Isn't that the intersection?
No, sir, it's here. You were full grid off.
Is there a problem, Captain Sobel?
Who said that?
Who broke silence?
I think it's Major Horton, sir.
Major Horton? What is he? Did he join us?
I think maybe he's moving between the platoons, sir.
What is the Hold up, Mr. Sobel!
A fence! Sir, God. A barbed wire fence!
Oh, that dog just ain't gonna hunt. Now you cut that fence and get this tune on the move!
Yes, sir!
Wire cutters.
So, just in case you didn't quite catch that, Sobel just fell for one of his men's impressions of another commanding officer and obeyed him. It's in scenes like these when the series really captures the ideas expressed in the book. The second scene in particular was taken right from Ambrose's work, and after seeing these two clips in the show, I felt much better about the series' depiction of Sobel as a man and a character. It adequately reflected every quality of him. He was a good leader. Okay, maybe not a great leader, but he did give the men the physical and mental strength they needed to succeed later down the line. But the fact remains that he really did not know what he was doing on the battlefield, and it's a good thing he got moved when he did, or a lot of the men at Easy would have really been in trouble. Most of Ambrose's evidence appears to come from interviews. He cites a vast number of them throughout the book, and at times he quotes them, although he's usually paraphrasing. These primary sources offer a huge degree of reliability to Ambrose's composition, although it also leaves it more open to human exaggeration. Ambrose's intense and entertaining tale of military intensity effectively conveys the gravity of the situations in which its characters find themselves. I seriously enjoyed the book, although I do have one critique. Ambrose seems to walk the line between academic and entertaining writing, and he never really achieves greatness in any direction. I think the book could benefit from more focus on one of those factors. I also want to acknowledge that Ambrose is an accomplished war writer. He writes books like this all the time. This means he obviously takes quite an interest in the subject, and as much as I don't like to think about it, it's definitely possible that he exaggerated some aspects of the stories due to that enthusiasm. Even so, the multitude of direct quotes and interviews comforts me and makes me think that it really does convey the truth of the situations. Overall, Band of Brothers creates a sense of admiration and amazement in the characters it describes, while offering an informed and interesting look into the history of World War II. I loved it, and definitely recommend you check it out if you enjoy learning about World War II, the military, or even if you just want to read a good book.